Welcome back to Bargirl Baddies. Today's story hits different because it's not about a bargirl or a romance scam or someone who lost everything to a con artist. This one's about something more subtle and maybe more painful. It's about a man who thought he'd built the perfect life in Thailand, married the right woman, done everything by the book. Until the day his wife decided to test him. And he failed before he even knew the test had started. Our storyteller today is Marcus, 31 years old, from Vancouver, Canada, software developer, smart guy. Good job. The kind of person who plans things out, who thinks he's self-aware, who believed he was different from all those other expats who come to Thailand chasing something they can't name. Marcus thought he had it all figured out. He didn't. This is a story about trust and self-deception and the brutal moment when you realize the person you've been lying to most is yourself. So drop a comment and let us know where you're watching from. And if you've ever been tested by someone you loved, if you've ever failed a test you didn't know you were taking, hit that like button and subscribe because you're going to want to hear how this one ends. Now here's Marcus's story in his own words. I need to be honest with you right from the start. I'm not the victim here. I know how these stories usually go on channels like this. Some guy gets scammed, loses his money, blames everyone but himself. That's not what happened to me. What happened to me was worse, because I can't blame anyone except the man I saw in the mirror every morning and chose to ignore. Let me take you back to early 2023. I was living in Vancouver, working for a tech company doing back-end development. The job was fine, the money was decent. I had a one-bedroom apartment in Mount Pleasant, with a view of the street and the coffee shop across the road, where the same people ordered the same drinks every single morning. I'd watch them sometimes during my breaks from Zoom meetings, the routine of it all. The predictability. Vancouver's expensive as hell, and I was making good money, but it never felt like enough. After rent and taxes and groceries and the occasional night out, I was maybe saving $1,000 a month if I was careful. And for what? To eventually buy a tiny condo in Burnaby, to keep riding the SkyTrain to a co-working space because the company went fully remote. But I couldn't stand working from my apartment anymore. I wasn't depressed exactly, I was just flat. You know that feeling? When you're going through the motions and everything's fine on paper, but nothing feels alive. I'd wake up, make coffee, sit at my desk, take meetings, write code, order dinner, watch Netflix, go to bed. Repeat. The Canadian winter didn't help. Those grey months from November to March where the sun sets at 4:30 and the rain just doesn't stop. I'd look out my window at people huddled under umbrellas and think, is this really it? Is this what I worked so hard for? That's when the YouTube algorithm got me. You know how it goes. You watch one video about digital nomads in Bali and suddenly your entire feed is people in their 20s and 30s working from beaches, living in $500 apartments that look like luxury hotels, eating incredible food for $3 a meal. Chiang Mai kept coming up. Northern Thailand. Cool in the winter, cheap as chips, fast internet, huge expat community, safe, beautiful. I fell down the rabbit hole hard. Reddit threads about the best neighborhoods, blog posts about visa options, cost of living spreadsheets. I learned you could live really well on $2,000 a month. I was making almost 6 figures Canadian. The math was stupid, simple. I could save more money, live better, and actually feel like I was having experiences instead of just existing. It took me 4 months to convince my boss to let me work remotely from Asia. I promised I'd overlap with Pacific time for meetings. I showed him my productivity metrics. I made it make sense. In March 2023, I bought a one-way ticket to Chiang Mai with 2 suitcases and a laptop bag. My parents thought I was having a midlife crisis at 30. My friends were jealous but also concerned. Everyone had opinions. I didn't care. For the first time in years, I felt like I was making a choice instead of just accepting whatever came next. The flight was long. Vancouver to Tokyo to Bangkok to Chiang Mai. By the time I landed, I'd been awake for 20 hours and my body didn't know what time zone it belonged to anymore. I walked out of the airport into the night air and it hit me like a wall. Heat. Real heat. It was March, and it must have been 30 degrees even at 11 p.m. The smell of street food and exhaust and something sweet I couldn't identify. Tuk-tuks and taxis honking. People everywhere. I got in a red Songthayu truck taxi and gave the driver the address of my Airbnb near the old city and just watched the city slide past to the open sides of the truck. I thought, this is it. This is the reset I needed. Those first few weeks were exactly what I'd hoped for. I found a co-working space called Pun Space, near Nimmen. Good Wi-Fi, good coffee, full of other remote workers from everywhere. Germans, Americans, Brits, Australians, a few other Canadians. Everyone was friendly in that surface-level way where you grab lunch together and talk about where you've travelled but don't really get deep. That was fine. I wasn't there to make best friends. I was there to figure out how to feel alive again. I got into a routine. Wake up early, go to a local market for breakfast. Cow soir or jock or whatever looked good. Work from 9 to 5 with the time difference, meaning my meetings were in the evening. Hit the gym. Explore a new temple or neighbourhood. Eat dinner at a different restaurant every night. The city felt both chaotic and peaceful at the same time. Scooters everywhere, but people were polite. Night markets that went until midnight. Mountains visible in the distance when the air was clear. And it was cheap. My Airbnb was $400 a month. Meals were $2 to $5 unless I went somewhere fancy. A massage was $7. Beer was $1.50. I was spending maybe $1,500 a month total and living better than I ever had in Vancouver. I started saving serious money. I felt smart. Like I'd cracked some code. That's when I met Ploy. It was a Saturday afternoon in late April. I was at a cafe called Ristra Itu near Nimmen, one of those trendy coffee spots with latte art competitions and single origin beans. I was sitting outside working on a personal coding project, taking advantage of the weekend to build something just for fun. She was at the next table with a laptop, working on something in Thai that looked like spreadsheets or maybe a presentation. Our eyes met when we both reached for the sugar at the same time. She laughed. I laughed. She said sorry in English. I said no problem. Then she asked what I was working on and we started talking. Ploy was 28. She worked in hotel management for a boutique resort outside the city. She'd studied hospitality at Chiang Mai University and her English was perfect, barely an accent. She had this laugh that was completely unself-conscious, loud and genuine. When she smiled, her whole face changed. We talked for 2 hours about nothing important. Travel, food, the differences between Canadian and Thai culture, the best neighbourhoods in Chiang Mai. Before I left, I asked if she wanted to get dinner sometime. She said yes immediately. No games, no pretending to check her schedule. Just yes. We went out 3 days later to a local restaurant in the old city that she recommended. The kind of place with no English menu where you just point at what other people are eating. She ordered for both of us. We ate and talked, and I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Connection. Real conversation. She asked about my work and actually listened. She told me about her family, how she grew up in a village about an hour outside Chiang Mai, how she'd worked hard to get to university, how she was proud of what she'd built for herself. There was no pressure, no agenda I could detect. She paid for her half of dinner. When I walked her to a scooter, she kissed me on the cheek and said she had a nice time. We started seeing each other twice a week, then 4 times, then basically every day. She'd finish work and come meet me at the co-working space. We'd ride her scooter to night markets or temples or viewpoints in the mountains. On weekends we took trips, Pai for the weekend, the White Temple in Chiang Rai, a national park with waterfalls. She introduced me to her friends, Thai people and expats both. I introduced her to the people I'd met at Pun Space. It felt real in a way nothing back home ever had. With girls I'd dated in Canada, there was always this performance. This sense that we were both trying to impress each other or fit some idea of what a relationship should look like. With Ploy, it just felt easy. We could sit in silence and it wasn't awkward. We could talk for hours and never run out of things to say. By August, I'd moved out of my Airbnb and into a 1-bedroom condo I rented long-term. Ploy basically lived there, even though she kept her own place officially. We'd cook together, her teaching me Thai dishes, me making her try poutine with whatever I could find at Rimping supermarket that was close enough to cheese curds. We'd work side by side, her on hotel stuff, me on code. In the evenings, we'd walk to get fruit shakes or sit on the balcony and watch the city lights. In October, she took me to meet her family. Her parents lived in a wooden house in a village surrounded by rice fields. Her father was a retired teacher. Her mother sold som tam and grilled chicken at a local market. They didn't speak much English, but they were warm and welcoming. We ate together, her translating, and I could see how proud they were of her, how much they'd sacrificed to put her through school. I gave them money when we left, 5,000 baht, about 200 Canadian. Ploy tried to stop me, but I insisted. It felt like the right thing to do. They'd welcomed me into their home. It was a small gesture. On the drive back to Chiang Mai, Ploy was quiet for a while. Then she said, "You're different from what I expected." I asked what she meant. She said, "I thought you'd be like other Farang, just here for fun. But you're serious. You care." That stuck with me. I felt seen. Validated. In December, 8 months after we met, I asked her to marry me. Nothing fancy. We were at Doi Suthet Temple at sunset. The city spread out below us, and it just felt right. I didn't have a ring. I just asked. She cried and said yes. We got married in January 2024. Small ceremony at a resort outside the city. Her family came. I flew my parents over and a couple of friends. We did a traditional Thai ceremony in the morning and a Western-style reception in the evening. It was perfect. I felt like I'd finally figured out what I was supposed to be doing with my life. Ploy moved into my condo officially. We talked about the future. Maybe buy a house eventually. Maybe kids in a few years. She wanted to keep working, and I supported that. I made enough for both of us, but I respected her independence. She was her own person. That's what I loved about her. The honeymoon phase lasted through the spring. We travelled to the islands in the south. Koh Samui, Koh Phangan. We ate at nice restaurants. I upgraded the condo to a bigger 2-bedroom in a newer building with a pool and gym. Ploy decorated it, making it feel like a home instead of just a place I slept. I started covering more of the expenses. It made sense. I was making way more than her. Rent, utilities, most of our meals out. She'd pay sometimes, but it wasn't expected. I liked providing. It made me feel needed, useful. Like I was being a good husband. When her father got sick in June and needed medication that wasn't covered, I sent 10,000 baht without her even asking. When her younger sister wanted to take an English course to improve her job prospects, I sent 15,000. When their house needed a new roof before rainy season, I sent 30,000. Each time Ploy was grateful, but also a little uncomfortable. She'd say I didn't have to, that it was too much. I'd tell her it was fine. We were family now. This is what family does. And I believed that. I really did. Looking back, I can see the pattern forming. But at the time, it just felt like love. Like building a life. Like being the kind of man I wanted to be. Generous. Supportive. Present. I thought I knew what I was doing. I thought I'd found something real. I thought I was different from all those other expats who came to Thailand with fantasies and delusions. I wasn't different. I was exactly the same. I just didn't know it yet. I thought I knew what love looked like. I was about to find out. I didn't know my wife at all. The honeymoon glow started to fade sometime around our first anniversary. Not dramatically, not like a switch flipping. Just gradually, the way colours wash out of the photograph left in the sun too long. Ploy was on her phone more. When I'd ask what she was doing, she'd say chatting with friends or scrolling TikTok or looking at something for work. Fair enough. I was on my laptop half the time anyway. We'd settled into that comfortable routine that couples fall into, less of the spontaneous weekend trips, more of the everyday rhythm. Wake up, coffee, work, dinner, TV, sleep. She started going out with her friends more often. Girls' night, she called them. I'd stay home, order food, catch up on work, or watch hockey games streaming from back home, even though the time difference meant they started at 4 in the morning. She'd come back late, a little drunk, smelling like cigarettes, even though she didn't smoke. I never questioned it. Why would I? I trusted her completely. The money requests kept coming, but they felt different now, more frequent, less apologetic. Her mother needed surgery. Her brother's motorcycle broke down. Her cousin was getting married, and the family needed to contribute. Each time it was 5,000 baht here, 10,000 there. Nothing huge, nothing that made me uncomfortable exactly. But it was adding up. I never said no. How could I? These were family emergencies, real needs. And I was making good money. My savings were still growing even with the extra expenses. I'd look at my bank account and think, what's the point of having money if I can't help the people I love? But sometimes, late at night when Ploy was asleep next to me, I'd wonder how much she actually made at her job. We'd never really talked about it directly. I knew hotel management didn't pay much in Thailand, but I didn't know specifics. She had her own bank account, her own finances. I respected her privacy. Or maybe I just didn't want to ask questions that might make things uncomfortable. There were moments when I'd catch her looking at me with an expression I couldn't read. Not cold exactly, but evaluating. Like she was measuring something. I'd ask if everything was okay, and she'd smile and say, of course, just tired from work. I'd believe her because it was easier than not believing her. Then came the Tuesday that changed everything. It was early March, almost exactly 2 years since I'd first arrived in Chiang Mai. A normal evening. I'd finished work around 6, made myself some pasta, was planning to watch a movie. Proy came home around 7 looking distracted. She was on her phone texting someone and barely acknowledged me when she walked in. I asked if she wanted dinner. She said she'd already eaten with a co-worker. Then she told me she was going to her friend Nock's place for the night. They were planning a surprise birthday party for another friend and needed to prepare decorations and organise everything. She'd stay over at Nock's and be back tomorrow afternoon. I said, okay. She packed a small bag, kissed me on the forehead like I was her brother or something, and left. I settled in for a quiet night, ordered some Thai food delivery, watched half a movie. Around 10 p.m, I was thinking about going to bed early when there was a knock on the door. I wasn't expecting anyone. I looked through the peephole and saw a woman I'd never seen before standing in the hallway. Young, maybe 25 or 26, dressed up like she was going out to a club. Tight black dress, heels, makeup done. I opened the door and she smiled at me. Hi, are you Marcus? She spoke English with a Thai accent, but clearly, confidently. I said yes, confused. She introduced herself as Mint, said she was a friend of Ploy's. She said Proy had asked her to drop off some documents that Proy had forgotten, something work-related that needed to be signed. I didn't see any documents in her hands, but I figured maybe they were in her purse. I said, okay, thanks. She asked if she could come in for a moment to use the bathroom. She said she'd been out with friends and really needed to go, and the bar she'd been at was too crowded. It was a weird request, but not weird enough to say no to. I stepped aside and let her in. Mint walked into my condo like she'd been there before. Looking around, commenting on the view, the furniture, the decorations. She went to the bathroom and I stood in the living room feeling awkward, waiting for her to finish and leave. But when she came out, she didn't head for the door. She walked to the kitchen, opened my fridge without asking, and pulled out a beer. You mind? She asked, after she'd already opened it. I said no, go ahead. I was too confused to object. She sat on the couch and patted the seat next to her. Sit. Talk with me for a minute. Proy tells me so much about you. I sat on the opposite end of the couch, asked her how she knew Ploy. She said they'd been friends for years since university. She worked at a spa downtown doing massage and beauty treatments. She asked about my work, seemed genuinely interested or at least good at pretending, asked how I liked living in Thailand, if I planned to stay forever. The conversation was fine, but something felt off. The energy was wrong. She was sitting too close now, had moved toward me while we talked. She kept touching my arm when she laughed. Her laugh was loud and performative. She asked if I ever got lonely, working from home all day while Poi was at her job. I said no, I'm used to it. I like the quiet. She said Thai women are lucky to have Farang husbands. Western men are so much kinder than Thai men, more generous, more romantic. I didn't know what to say to that, so I just nodded. She finished her beer and asked if she could have another. I said sure and got up to get it for her, trying to create some distance. When I came back, she'd taken her heels off and had her feet tucked under her on the couch. She was looking at her phone, scrolling through photos. She showed me a picture of her and Ploy together at some club or bar. Both of them dressed up, drinks in hand. I'd never seen that photo. Ploy rarely posted pictures of nights out with friends. We look good together, right? Mint said. Then she showed me more photos. Her at the beach, her at restaurants, her posing in various outfits. It felt like she was showing me a portfolio. I made some non-committal comments, nice looks fun, that kind of thing. Then she shifted the conversation. Asked if I was happy with Ploy, if our marriage was good, if we had problems like all couples do. I said we were fine. Great, actually. She nodded slowly, like she didn't quite believe me. She said relationships are hard. She'd just broken up with her boyfriend. He was jealous, controlling, didn't like her going out with friends. Western men seemed so much more relaxed about that kind of thing. I was starting to feel uncomfortable. The whole situation was strange. I looked at my phone, made a show of checking the time, said I had to be up early for a meeting. Mint didn't take the hint. She leaned closer and put her hand on my knee. She said she could tell I was a good man, a good husband. Ploy was lucky. Her hand stayed on my knee. I should have moved it, should have stood up, should have said it was time for her to go. I didn't do any of those things. I just sat there frozen, my heart racing, some part of my brain screaming at me to end this, while another part was curious where it was going. She moved even closer. Asked if I ever thought about other women. If I ever got tired of the same person every day. I said no, not really. My voice didn't sound convincing even to myself. She said it's natural to be curious, to wonder. It doesn't make you a bad person. Then she leaned in and kissed me. For maybe 2 seconds I didn't react. Then I kissed her back. It wasn't long. Maybe 10 seconds before I pulled away. But it happened. I let it happen. Mint smiled. Ran her hand through my hair. Said I was sweet. That she could see why Ploy liked me. I stood up quickly. Said this was a mistake. That she should probably go. She wasn't offended. Just laughed softly and said, okay, relax. She put her heels back on, picked up her purse, walked to the door slowly, like she had all the time in the world. Before she left, she turned and said, I'll tell Ploy you were very welcoming, very kind. Then she was gone. I locked the door and stood there in the silence, feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. What the hell just happened? Was that real? Did I just cheat on my wife? It was just a kiss. We didn't do anything else, but I'd kissed her back. I'd let her touch me. I'd been tempted by more even if nothing more happened. I didn't sleep that night. Just lay in bed replaying everything. Trying to figure out if Mint would tell Ploy. Trying to decide if I should tell Ploy first. Trying to convince myself it wasn't that bad while knowing it was exactly that bad. The next day, Ploy came home in the afternoon like she'd said she would. She was normal. Cheerful even. Asked how my night was. I said fine, quiet, watched a movie. She didn't mention Mint, didn't act suspicious or angry or different in any way. I thought maybe Mint hadn't told her. Maybe it was just going to be this awful secret I'd carry. Maybe I'd gotten away with it. Days passed. A week. Then 2 weeks. I started to relax. Started to convince myself it had been a weird aberration, a moment of weakness that didn't mean anything. Ploy and I were fine. We went out to dinner, had friends over, made plans for a trip to Vietnam in a few months. Then 3 weeks after that night, Ploy asked me to sit down. She had something to talk to me about. My stomach dropped. I knew before she said anything. She was calm. Too calm. She said Mint had told her everything, that I'd invited her in, given her drinks, kissed her, touched her. I tried to interrupt, to explain that wasn't how it happened, but Ploy held up her hand. She said she knew exactly how it happened because she'd sent Mint to test me. I felt like the floor had disappeared beneath me. What? Ploy explained it methodically, like she was describing a work project. She said she'd been suspicious for a while. That I looked at other women when we were out, that I seemed distant sometimes, that she wanted to know if I was faithful, if I really loved her, or if I just loved having a Thai wife as some kind of trophy. So she asked Mint to go to our condo and see what would happen. Mint was supposed to flirt, to see if I'd take the bait, and I had, immediately. Without hesitation, according to Mint's version, I tried to defend myself. Said Mint had been aggressive, that she'd made the first move, that it was just a kiss and nothing more. Ploy listened without expression. When I finished, she said, "That's not the point. The point is, you failed. If you really loved me, if you really respected our marriage, you would have sent her away the moment she started flirting. But you didn't. You let her stay. You gave her beer. You sat close to her. You kissed her back. I said it wasn't fair to test me like that. That relationships are built on trust, not traps." She laughed at that. A short, bitter laugh. She said trust has to be earned. And I'd just proven I couldn't be trusted. I asked if she'd ever really loved me, or if I was just an ATM machine for her and her family. That made her angry for the first time. She said how dare I accuse her of that after everything she'd given up for me. Her independence, her privacy, her dignity, listening to her friends whisper about her Farang husband who probably went to bars when she wasn't looking. We fought for 2 hours, both of us saying things we couldn't take back. Finally, she packed a bag and said she was going to stay with her sister for a while. She needed space to think about what this meant for our marriage. She left, and I was alone in the condo, surrounded by all the things we built together. The furniture she'd picked out, the photos on the wall from our trips, the kitchen where we'd cooked together, I wanted to be angry at her for testing me, for setting me up, for not trusting me enough to just talk to me if she had concerns. But underneath the anger was something worse. Shame. Because she was right. I had failed. Not because she'd tested me, but because when the moment came, I'd made a choice. And I'd chosen wrong. I thought about all the times I told myself I was different from other expats, that my relationship was real, that I wasn't like those guys who came to Thailand looking for something they couldn't name and settling for something they didn't deserve. But I was exactly like them. I'd loved the idea of Ploy more than I'd loved Ploy herself. I'd loved having a beautiful Thai wife who made me feel needed and important. I'd loved playing the generous Western husband who solved problems with money. I'd loved the validation of her family's gratitude and her friends' envy. But had I ever really known her? Had I ever asked the hard questions about what she wanted, what she feared, what she needed that money couldn't buy? Had I ever made her feel like an equal partner, or just a supporting character in my adventure of self-discovery? Sitting alone in that condo with the city noise filtering in through the windows, I realised the worst part. Ploy had tested me because she already knew who I was. She just needed confirmation. And I'd given it to her. I wanted to blame her for testing me. But the truth was worse. She already knew who I was. I was the only one pretending.